Let's see. I want to see linquad 4, number 3. Show me that you did it. Yep. 0 for 1. Should I even bother looking? 0 for 2. Oh, you did it. No. So you guys want to ask it now? Since this is one of the 8 problems on the test. There's 8 problems on the test. I already told you the first problem, right? Write the equation of Euler's line. That's number 1. That's been number 1 on the test for the last 26 years. That's not going to change. Okay? So I'm telling you right now. In fact, if you listen to me, I'll tell you all 8 problems on the test. You just have to be able to, just like the quiz. All I did is copy and paste, change the number, all hell breaks loose. Oh my goodness. So shall we do linquad 4, number 3? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Of course, it's not going to be simple as this. It's going to be kicked up a notch, but it's the same concept. You have to understand the concept. Okay, first of all, do you know what it means if a line is tangent to a parabola? Like that. What does that mean? The line is tangent to the parabola. It intersects at one point, and that's the key to the whole problem right there. It intersects at only one point. Now here's the equation of the parabola. Y equals x squared plus 5x. Here's the equation of the line. Y equals x plus k. We just don't know what k is. That's what we're trying to figure out. So what does the value of k have to be so that the line is tangent to the parabola? Well, how do you find where 2 graphs intersect? What do you do? Make them equal. Okay, that's a term for, I don't know what that's a term for. It's called substitution. Since y is equal, set them equal. Y equals this, you substitute that for y. It's called substitution. And what kind of equation is this? Since that's what we're studying this chapter. It's a quadratic equation. How do you solve quadratic equations? You make one side 0, like this. See, you have a k in there. And what tells you how many solutions a quadratic equation has? Discriminant. What is the discriminant? b squared minus 4ac. That's the discriminant. The discriminant tells you lots of things. Like in this case, we only want one solution. Therefore, the discriminant has to be 0. And then now you solve for k. That's how you do this problem. If there is only one solution, the discriminant must be equal to 0. So this is an easy example of this concept. And then I think there's another one on the practice test, and then you're going to get the kicked up a notch one on the test. Okay. We also didn't discuss linquad 5, number 6 and 8, yeah? Okay, let's do that then. We're not going to finish. Because how many questions do you guys have on linquad 6? I'm afraid to even ask. Let's do number 6 because this is another important problem. The roots of this equation, how many roots does this equation have? 2, and let's call them r and s. Write in a quadratic equation whose roots are r plus 1 and s plus 1. Now, how many of you actually found out what the roots were? And then just added 1 to each of them? Then you can do that, but here, I'm going to show you a better way. Why don't you think of the graph of this? Like if you thought of the graph of y equals that, what is this graph going to be? Rhymes with parabola. Come on, in this chapter, it's either a parabola or a mine. It's a parabola. And then here are the 2 roots, r and s. We want the 2 roots to be r plus 1 and s plus 1, like this. In other words, add 1 to each of the roots like that. In other words, shift the graph 1 to the right. So if you think of it in terms of a graph, it's a lot easier. Do we know how to shift the graph 1 to the right? Yes, we took Algebra 1. Here, let me refresh what you guys learned in Algebra 1. Well, what is this graph? Oh gosh. It's the V, remember? Like that? Algebra 1. And then remember, you guys have to shift it left, right, up and down. How do you make it go 1 to the right? Oh gosh, please help me. Does that shift it 1 to the right? Or 1 to the left? Or 1 up or 1 down? That's 1 to the right. So to shift any graph 1 to the right, all you have to do is do this, f of x minus 1. Substitute x minus 1 for x. So the answer for this problem is simply, all you do is plug in x minus 1 for x. Boom, that's the answer. Isn't that a lot faster than doing it the other way? And of course you got to simplify it, but I'm just showing you how to do it. So what if on the test I go, what if I go r minus 2, s minus 2? Then you got to shift it 2 to the left. How do you shift the graph 2 to the left? F of x plus 2. So what you do is you substitute x plus 2 for x. Alrighty then. And look at the time now. You know what? And what? Let's just do number 8 quickly. We're in a heap of trouble. Because, not too many people coming for help in the morning, so I'm just thinking, what? Everybody's just nailing these problems. Okay, this is what we're doing. This is a classic problem. You have a graph. It doesn't really matter what the graph is. In this case, it's root x. And here is a point, which is 3, 0. What we want to do is we want to find what point on this graph is closest to this point. What's the point on this graph that is closest to this point? It's probably going to be somewhere over there. Now, how do I label this point, since I don't know what it is? X, comma, y. Well, what is y equal to in this problem, if you're on this graph? Root x. So that's how you label that point. We want this distance to be as small as possible. In other words, we want to find the minimum. So we want to minimize the distance right here. Let's call this d for distance. Do I know how to find the distance between 2 points? Yep, you use the distance formula. So d equals the square root of x minus 3 squared plus root x. I'll even write the minus 0 at no extra charge for you. There. But see, it's very difficult to find the minimum of this. Of course, you could graph it on your calculator and you're going to see a hump like this. You can calculate the minimum. But we do a trick in calculus or pre-calculus. Instead of looking at the distance, we look at the square of the distance. Because if you just think about it, if you want this to be as small as possible, then the inside of the radical got to be as small as possible, right? Or even if you don't think about it. So we look at the square of the distance. So what is the square of this thing? Well, the same thing except there's no radical. And of course, if you square that, you just get x. And what kind of function is that? What are we studying this chapter? It's a quadratic equation. That's what we're studying. Do we know how to find the minimum of a quadratic function? Yeah, find the vertex, right? So what I would do if I were me, I would multiply it out, x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus x. So that comes out to x squared minus 5x plus 9. That's a quadratic function. How do you find them? And since the leading coefficient is positive, it's going to open up. How do I find the vertex? Negative b over 2a. That's the fastest way. So what is negative b over 2a? Come on, you can do this in your head. Negative b over 2a. 5 halves. So that means, see, what you're doing is the graph is the square of the distance. The square of the distance will be a minimum when x is 5 halves. So that means this point over here is 5 halves, comma, the square root of 5 halves. That's the point that's closest to that point right there. That's a classic problem. Which means every book, every Algebra 2 pre-calculus or calculus book has this problem. Okay, what time is it? Oh my goodness. Okay, now finally we can get to linquad6. And wow, period 3. It must be the smartest class in the history of pre-calculus honors. There's nothing up there. And we only have 6 minutes remaining, so hopefully there's only 1 or 2 questions. You guys don't come in for help. You don't write problems on the board. See, look at number 6. Linquad6, number 6. Remember that problem I just talked about? A line is tangent to the parabola. That's one of the 8 problems on the test. There you go. You gotta practice that. Also, no questions then. Okay, we're done then. I don't see anything up there, but how about somebody shout out something? 1. 2. Okay, so it looks like, wait, this is extended, okay, I think tomorrow's extended evens, right? So I won't see you till Wednesday. So Wednesday it's going to be a marathon session going over linquad6 and 7, I think. That's what it's going to be. So just write all on the board then.
Yeah.
All. Just do all. You want me to do all?
Except
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to do 9. Thank you. All. Anyway, if you're going to write all, then write it like that because it's 911, right? I need help. Send emergency services. Number 1. Okay, now, when you have to write an equation of a line, you have to decide which form you want to use. Like in this case, what form is going to be the best? Since they're talking about the 2 intercepts. Well, you only have 4 forms, people. Which is the one that has the 2 intercepts in it? Intercept form. This is what you want to use. But Mr. Park, I don't like that one. Yeah, but that's the one that's going to be the most useful. This is the x-intercept. This is the y-intercept right there. You got to get used to it. Okay, now it says the sum of the 2 intercepts is 10. What does that mean? A plus B equals 10. Which means B is equal to... Oh gosh, you can't even subtract A from both sides. Go to your room. 10 minus A. Oh, I can put that right here. Yeah, but Mr. Park, I still got so many variables. Yeah, but then it says the line passes through the point 3, 2. What do you do when it says the graph passes through this point? What do you do at that point? You plug it in. So you plug in 3 for x and 2 for y. Now you'll have an equation with only 1 variable. And then you just solve it. Can you guys take it from there? I hand the ball off to you. Are you going to fumble it or are you going to score a touchdown? Or can you at least run a little bit before you fumble? What's wrong with period 3? What's wrong? So do you want me to solve it or no? You guys can solve quadratic equations, right? Look, this is what you got. 3 over a I don't even know what's going on with you guys. How do you solve an equation like this? Go back to algebra 1. When you have an equation with fractions, multiply both sides by the least common denominator of all the fractions, which is? Oh gosh, we don't even know what the LCD is. A times 10 minus A. If you multiply both sides by that, then you'll have a quadratic equation. All the denominators will be gone. Okay, you guys got to do that. Oh gosh, we got. Okay, somebody said number 2. Now, like on today's quiz, do we know how to find the distance between a point and a line? Yeah. Okay, well, now I have 2 parallel lines. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, Mr. Park. Yes, you do, if you think about it. How many points make up this line? Infinitely many. Do you think you can find one of them? Yeah, so just find 1 point on this line and then find the distance between the point and the line. And then it's exactly the same as today's quiz, right? Okay, so we're going. How do you do that? You're grounded. Okay, find, look, there's an infinite number of points. Just find one. Can you find 1 point that lies on this line? How about make y 0 and then x would be 34, 15. So how about that? That's a point. Here, you want another one? How about make x 0 and then y will be negative 34 over 8. Oh no, Mason has another one. Give me another one then.
6, 7.
6, 7. Oh, you like the integers then, huh? Does that work? 90, yeah, that works. There's an infinite number of points. Just get one and then find the distance between any one of these points and the line. And remember, the line has to be in general form, so you gotta bring it over like that, yeah? Yeah, but Mr. Park, that's ugly, but look. What happens when you plug that in over there? Oh, the 15s cancel out, so it's not that ugly. Here, you guys try it. Okay, the bell's gonna ring already. All I can tell you is you guys are in heap of trouble. So, the next class is gonna be a marathon session. Woo! Period 3. Yeah. It's gonna be Friday at lunch. That's the only time. Did you sign up? Okay. Mason, did you sign up? You were one of the first guys to sign up, right? We're challenging the skill from math. Period 3. Your stock is plummeting.